다와 단계 번배제 담배제는 등자모 고담대 라차서 야 다되네 무슨 소인다
음. 음.
다 가산 쇼고 가산 다야 쇼고다래 와
레레레.
어디라마 라차 다되네 자리래 스쳐 된 들이 간샤버 저 쳐내서 세제 쳐도 가래 이제 오메자와의 인자
그래서 나서기 배사 연나야 부도 니슈 그서 추추둑라 렙고로 아마레.
네
추룩. Daniel, if you can put page 16, page 16, it would be great. I have on my own, but for the other translator, it would be nice. Way, yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, yeah, Borisha.
와야 다 세제쳐도 자와치로 그랬죠 와
Nare,
대체 윤데 샤방으로 도와다 샤방으로 주와 스니 용요레스 샤방으로 도와서 샤방으로 오케이 샤바 샤방으로 도와들라 되나 가인스나다 사제주나 사정아 요레스 당한조 사정아지 당고지 말라 하나에 제 것이 수수스죠 동바인게 돈다데 안아서 덕분에 제 것이 수수스라데 동인게 돈다 안서게 토삼 고혼 전에 안서 시구레스 와 제 것이 상서 되다 토삼 돈나 제 고레 이 시고 시구레스 뭐 제가 저 수수스
네, 계시라 그런 삽삽시 그런 데 테스큐 요리 데 트라딜와 세탄 그런 트라딜라 데 컨트롤 노이즈 유사리 데나라 제마 데 컨트롤 노이즈 메바이나 야사리 딘데 카이마리 이나 그런게 다 갑도 딘데 키제스네 야부도 컨서 테스트 유바이나 안에 노타 용게돌와 데 키제시 그런 데 삽삽시 그래 나리 나소 오데 나소 아니 Nadigido, Tigangi, Kansnakerangi, Zoom non lagi, cancel noise gi, bejeton ya yusari, den nota yuri, Gemana sumeba sugridi. In a Kayomari, Karan Kaptu Kejashina non tamendo. Lasso, okay. Okay.
Tanya Saja de Malawi, Aladamo Saja de Malawina. Kindness Ranzo Danda, Kanshigi or Resna, Shevon to draw to the Shevon Juba, such a nigget on a shiggy yesterday. 아드네 쉐병원도 도와들라 사정아요레스
네네
네네 사정아지 지나서 맞을라 그냥 교토그래 가돌 때 가인스나 사정아데 가인스나 대코나이 제 question 대코나이 추추스 대코나이서 동반이랑 가서 터상 돈에 제 구글에서 가서 제 구글에서라도 가서 쉐버셔구글에서와 네네 시즈데 간데레서 직접 사자당보데 네네. 내 돈이 땡기는 게 땡주 잡아도 좋아. 땡주 잡아도 고물루스에 간데 중화래. 고물루게 나 고물루스에 그게 중요하대. 그게 중요하래. 세다 마오바 가서 사자 되나 고물루게 못이대. 그렇죠? 네네. 당 고물루는 제베 땡주가 남샤서 고물루는 제베 땡주 가르가르야래. 당당 안서 쉐주고 땡주도 빠와시라. 누구나 거 쪼도 빠와시라. 그래서 디남샤 시키잖아. 다 근데 사모토파니라 문제 방향 나가서다 쳐연게서다 다 사모토파니래 되네 돈도 내자든 내가 다치 현대 중앙 사삼 제대 좋아데 대평양 거제야 그래서 계지시 네네 다 대가라 셰베 안내 된 바스라 야 돈이 셰베 너도 로다 메로스 본이 술을 샤나 디기야 아사 샤나 디기면도 셰세가 내도 보시 와 도도스는 사제 되지 토네 되는 안저 담보 셰방을 주고 가서 셰방도 도와서 어디서 주마래
Naso, Nadilamgi, no Gallegalleloa. Okay, so now we arrive to the commentary of Isones de Lama regarding how we say in Tibetan, Saweshera means the stance of the middle way. And in the stance of the middle way, we reach to the, let's say, to the topic. Naturally, it's called the necessity of investigating such states and the methods of researching it. Okay, that's the way. Okay, and in this topic, that we are in this topic, there is actually 5 sections. Okay, 5 sections. So the first section is the one we just described, which is the necessity of investigate suchness, you can say ancientity or suchness, and the method of researching it. This is the first one. The second is about the one who promulgate such a view, actually, which is Nagarjuna. So this way, in this topic, the second topic, we're going to investigate a bit more about Nagarjuna, his life, his biography, what he did, and how he's so important in exposition this view. So that's the second topic. The third topic will be his treatise, what he composed, what text did he compose. So right now we know already one, which is this stance of the middle way, but there is many other treatises, and what's the different explanation on these different treaties and everything. So that's about his, let's say, masterpiece, so what he composed during his life concerning this topic about emptiness. And then the fourth topic will be the benefit. What you gain, actually, you can say like that, what you gain by cultivating the view of emptiness. What is so important? Why is so beneficial or to cultivate such a view? And the fifth one will be what are the people who are, let's say, suitable recipient for this teaching. I should speak slowly. Forget, people have to translate that for me, so I have to go a little bit slowly. Okay, so what are the suitable disciple? Basically, who you can teach suchness, and who you are not supposed to teach such a teaching, such a profound teaching. So that will be on the fifth one. So that's what we're going to study in this text. Okay, so here we are on the first one, which is the necessity of investigating suchness and the methods of researching it. How you research, how you use your brain or your logical reasoning about emptiness or suchness. Voilà so.
아주 세겠다. 아 그것도네 다 그니 아 방법 대코나에 제 것이 수수들이 되게지도 시고 시기하러 봐.
나리.
와 저거 인도서 다 그래서 다. 다 서무동반이 있어요. 서무동반이게 이게 따와대서라 저 동반이게 따와서 동반이게 따와서 단다 유기 따와 유정기 셔발라고야 말해 싫어라고야 말해 단다 유기 따와대 나리 유동반이 있어야 돼서 유동반이 있어야 돼와 나리 다 유동반이 있어도 제고버 송신스러도 유동반이 있어도 알아서 셔구레스 알아서 터봐도 삼바 제제 동반이 돈다데 셔구레스 나리 따와 대양스 근데 유 동반이게 따와 대양스 다 가인스나 상계기 따와 대양스 다래 따와 대양스 내가 시 토네 과차바시 그거 신도 계신 분에 딘시도는 과차바 제다 하장에 계신 분에 순가래 나서 티kalek labgien ti labgien okay, so we are here on the text, okay, just here. So when we talk about emptiness or suchness or emptiness, or in Tibetan we have this word te konani, means like really te konani, like te this and konani only this. Basically that's the idea of suchness. So when we talk about that, you have to understand it's an object, yul. It's not how you say consciousness, it's an object. So that's very important to understand. It's something like something like external, let's say, object of knowledge, something like that. So it's an object, it's external. Okay, and another point here that Zionist Dilemma explained, if when you want to investigate such object about suchness, then you should start from the Four Noble Truths. That's a crucial aspect. You definitely have to start with the understanding, very deep and profound understanding of the Four Noble Truths, the Fourth Noble Truth. That's very important. Kishela, kailangan kong dugin itong imindo, kailangan nakpo chaso. Oh yeah, that's this. Oh yeah. that's 야, 나도 내가 가서 대체 송시 스타워데 딘시도나 과차바 개심을 했어.
That's all. That's
야,
it.
덴바 진도나 고 마차바이나 상기 최문 지바가 상기 최문 지마나 상기 쓰다 군더를 나와 차도 그래서 꾸나야라 양 tan가를 나와 차도 그래서 와 모두 삼네 대처라 양 상기 최스라도 최 부디랍들 지셔도라들 대바라드나 망고지나다 대야로 벤저 강드나 대망고야로 어디에서 나와 차도 그래서
That's it.
that semperculas. 대점님 상기기 상기기 추 모션 받던 말에 저는 상기기 추스도 다 나가는 알아서 템바시 돈에 상기기 추도 모션 보고요.
That's all. Okay, so if we don't do that, if we not start from the Four Noble Truths, to have a very deep and profound understanding of Four Noble Truths, what will be the consequence of such attitude, let's say? So first, you won't understand what is the Buddha. You don't understand. And so as you won't understand, you won't really have a great understanding or even understanding what the Buddha, you will think the Buddha is something like a statue or a tanka. When you think about Buddha, you think about, oh, Buddha is this tanka or this statue. And as you don't really understand Buddha, his teaching will be the same. For you or for this kind of person, the teaching will be we say in Tibetan the poti, the Tibetan text, or you have in a stream, we say, or in a shrine, when you do a shrine, on top of a shrine you have all these different texts, and that will be the Dharma actually. The Dharma will be simply the collection of these texts. For you that will be the Dharma. So basically you won't understand either the Buddha and his teaching, the Dharma. It will be something very external, like a statue and just text. Oh yeah. Daniel, can you write the text, please? You're right already there at the end. Oh yeah, very good. Thank you. Okay.
yeah. Doja. Gunze dena da. Dinshi namsha shebe kone sangi gi chu motoba shi never kolas.
Never golas.
Temba shi tone sangi gi chu so moto che guriyares. Sangi gi chu so dinshi momata na sangi gi moto toda.
Nare.
Temba shi se de kare slade tunge temba goje temba gobe temba lange temba shu teres.
Nare. Okay. So here, as we said already many times, so if you don't really understand or study in great depth the Four Noble Truths, you won't understand the Buddha, you won't understand the Dharma. So you absolutely need to study the Four Noble Truths. And it is not an easy topic. It's not something like easy or very basic as maybe people may think. It's absolutely not. It's very profound and very deep teaching and meaning. And if you ask what is the Four Noble Truths, it's Dunya Neba means the truth of suffering, the truth of origin of suffering, and the truth of cessation, Gorpa, and the truth of the path that lead to the cessation of suffering. So that's the Four Noble Truths. Voilà, so.
야, 나 dinshi tone da nganzu ngote che godos.
Nare.
다 dinshi kana da ale resla ne, ale dambo diji ma chilo ja de nganzu dinshi tone ke shena disare ro. 다 다kum도 소는 다 dos nyambe de ne, taji zam shebe misho bados. 대바스스 민잠 제 she다가 펜토고 민도스.
Nare. Hamsin some metabas.
나 편도 민도스. misho dinshi chiri yamba shise de shejala sida masi chiri yorebe yo marebe je wo tiwa chikshe je ngene sushi yina ta yamba shise de ngene rebe ngene gita gasura jugunju genge jebu dungen jodang riba chikda kyulamdela dene jebu godin jo riba de ngene sushi rebe sta yina minsere 아데시 오레스 오레. 내가 토네 대신 나네 장 다 동네 대마다 군주 대마서네 다 나라서 가나 간상지 간서 냐냥토다 시에지도스
Mhm.
그냥 와서 남들서도 로좀 쓰고 많구나 시에가 랑가 말했어
Nari.
와도
Nari.
좀 거야
Nari. So as is explained here, we need to start for the Four Noble Truth. It's very clear. Okay. So let's do that. Let's start with the Four Noble Truth. So first, what he say here is not enough to just know these Four Noble Truths by heart. Like we just say suffering, origin, cessation, and path. This kind. That's not absolutely not enough. We really need to go in much more depth than that. And the first thing we first need to ask ourselves, is it a true? Is it a real thing? Is it really something that is real? Because the Buddha explains the Four Noble Truth not as a philosophical point of view, but as a reality, something that really exists. Really, there is such a thing like suffering, and there is such a thing as something which is the origin of such suffering. And then, so you have to think carefully. Is it true that what is exposed by the Buddha to be the origin of suffering, really the origin of such suffering? That's the first question we should ask. And then, next question, the Buddha explains the cessation, a situation where there is no more suffering. Is it true? Is it something possible? Like there is no suffering anymore. And more importantly, he explains the path to be what leads to the cessation of suffering. And this we need to ask ourselves also. Is it something true? Is it true that if you follow such a path, you will eliminate all suffering and you will reach a situation where there is no more suffering? So this is really something you just need to not just know and think lightly about it, but really examine it and see if this is it true, is it something real. So this is very important, and here the Dalai Lama explains that very clearly, because the thing is concerning the suffering and the origin of suffering, we may have some understanding through our own experience. We can really feel, okay, we suffer and what's lead to this suffering, and understand a little bit this too about the origin and the suffering itself. But in regarding to the other one, the two other, which is the path and the cessation, this is not something we can really experience by our own. We need to have a deeper study, deeper, let's say, education or reflection, and able to grasp such a subtle idea about the path and the cessation. So this is why here, explained in this text, we need to study these two. Hola, so.
아야 다당고 다데네 다 템바 시토나 상게기 쇼모테 고우이나 다 딘시 토마르데 동네기 템바레스
Nare.
동네기 템바레스 다 동네기 템바세데 계랑 동네 템바세다 가레 동네 템바레스 계라 주전 쪽다 동네 템바고 아주 풍부나데 나라주 수기 풍부 나라주 초와 나라주 두시 나라주 두지 나라주 낭식이 풍부스잖아 나라주 소소 제외기기 풍부 나보텔라 동행기 때봤으라고 그래서
나기도 봄보나기 두냐기 덴바 송도와.
풍부가 될 동행기 때발라고 그래서
Nare. Okay, so let's do that as we start again. So if we need to focus on the Four Noble Truths, let's start with the first one, which is dunya, suffering. So it says here that our five aggregates that compose ourself actually, so basically our form body, you can say form body, sensation, perception, you can say something like discrimination or volition, something like that, and consciousness. These four aggregates are actually suffering. So we need to think, is it true that these four aggregates, these five aggregates that compose what we are is suffering? So they need to think about this way. That's all.
Yes, 다 동행기 다데네 가서 풍부가데 동행기 때바이나 다 동행기 때바 사들라 체지 시샤기도스
nare.
담보들
Nare.
동네 담바 선전대기 클레베라 참나 선전대가 콜로 담배 가수 담바 시세도 숭숭스러워
Nare.
담바 시 나네래 담바 시세 되게 나라라 근데 담보 동네대 봤은 것도
Nare.
동네 담바 별로 캐지 시도
Oh,
담보디 미다 말했다
nare.
미다 받은 동나와 동화다 아니 시들레스
Nare. Nare.
제가 먼저 개 처음부터 가르쳐야 되게 알았을라데 뭐 동네댐 토마르데 동네댐 받으래 동네댐에 캐지 시디 시야 돼 하천 개심보래 동네댐에 캐지 시디 가서 시도 봐 주나 나라도 군주댐 바른 신 시도 그래 될라들랑 가서 과된 키게 될라 가서 댐시
Nare. Nare.
뭐 이거 sama 되네 게 뭐야 돼 동네댐 받으래 스타당보
Nare. Nare. Okay. So, you always have this aspect. We say truth of suffering, not just suffering, truth of suffering. Dunyal Demba. Okay. So, the first thing we already ask ourselves of 5 aggregate, is there true suffering? So, we say form, sensation, it's a discrimination, volition, and consciousness. Is all this to be the truth of suffering? Dunyal Demba. That's the first question. Then, when the Buddha explained this Four Noble Truths, he explained the suffering, the origin, the cessation, and the path, and each of them have actually 4 aspects. So it's not only one aspect, but each of them, when you divide it, there is actually 4 aspects. So let's deep into that. So the first one is the true suffering, Dunya Demba. So Dunya Demba, the 4 aspects, we have to know and we have to understand. It's extremely important. Permissikel Shambure. Permissikel Shambure means it's very important to understand and know these 4 aspects. Because if you know these 4 aspects, then you will understand naturally the origin of suffering. And when you understand naturally the origin of suffering, you will understand why, if you take this origin away, it becomes a cessation. There is no more suffering. And you will understand also, you understand also what is the path to lead such cessation. So it's very, very important, crucial even say, to understand the 4 aspects. So what are those aspects of the 4 aspects of the truth of suffering? The first one is impermanence, mitakpa, impermanence. The second is dunyawa, means suffering. So that's another aspect. Suffering. Second aspect is suffering. The third one is tongbawa, or tongba, means empty or emptiness. Maybe empty better than emptiness. Empty. And the last one, dameva, means without self. No more, no self. So these 4 aspects have to be clearly understood. So let's start again, repeat again. Impermanence, suffering, empty, and selfless. So that's the 4 aspects of suffering.
예, 나도 쎄. 통화는 좀 믿어봐 드렸어.
Nare.
좀 믿어봐 쓰더라. 작배 믿어봐 쓰다. 참에 믿어봐 쓰. 남샤 인용도.
Naso.
작배 믿어봐 쓰는 아무도 조상을 걸었던 거고도 쓰는 아무도 치워 믿어봐 더 상당해스.
Nare. Nare.
치워 믿어봐 더 상당바이나 알아서 다 치워서 네발도 용구 여봐지. 치워서는 알아서 미타마도 남시잖아. 치루그래 쓰지. 왔다 치워서 용구 여봐지로. 치워 내서세. 얘네 가드라지 용구를 봤을라나. 로 자에 나로라 용구를 대 얘네 두지 따가 메스다.
Lo chiamano Nare. Nare.
로 자에 나야 다 쳤어. 이게 나로라 다시 무슨 소리야?
Nare. Nare.
가셔 님지인의 용식이라 가셔라 로가지처럼 용식 단 담아들 왔어.
Nare.
전달로 자에 나 용구를 쓰 간소라. 치워서.
Nare.
남신이 와면서 다 치워서나 땅 안에서 치워서는 안에서 레서 무시 사이나 자야 무시 조이나 뒤 지구의 팽개를 마도 저기 Ora kera la dong ngobo chisan chi yawa de pen tok mando. Kera ga nami da bunja da togo da kaza yena de pen tok mando. Kera la chala za shimo ne ra chimbo ro kari yena pen tok mando. So chi ge pen tok mando. Da kera ga le sambo sa yena di chi gu res ta. Di ki le sambo sa yena di ke wa chima de ale tangbo de nyeson to do mo chi. Right. Nyeson de ke wa la mo chi yung gu res ta. What is you got to less somebody you got that less somebody so the talk our channel Nikichubun Sudun on so channel.
Nari.
You are Chubun Sudun on so
Nari. Oh. Okay, so now let's talk to the first aspect. So aspect is mitakba, means impermanence. Okay, so when you say impermanence, there is two aspects. Divide again. So there is a gross aspect and a subtle aspect of impermanence. So let's talk about first the gross aspect of impermanence. So when you say gross aspect of impermanence, the first thing that come in mind is death, because you say impermanence and death. Because basically you cannot escape this part. I mean this aspect of death. One sooner or later you're going to die. That's absolutely sure. There is no escape to that. There's no like some way on. No escape to death. So you can be sure that death is certain. Maybe not pleasant to hear, but nevertheless is certain. And you can be certain, as Geshe-la say, it will be in. How can I put it that? In 100 years, around 100. So in 100 years, we don't know when, not exactly. It depends for each people, but you will definitely going to die in 100 years. There is some people a little bit more than 100, but most of them in 100 is about the time we're going to die. But you have absolutely no certainty when. So some people die at 5 years, so 4 years, 40 years, 50 years, 80 years. We don't know when we're going to die, but it's definitely certain. And when we die, what is the only thing that creates some which is useful? The only thing which is useful is the good action you have created, the good, let's say, positive action. That's the only thing that makes some benefit. Whatever else is completely useless. No matter how much different possession, very precious thing you have, it won't give any help. Or even if you know every very important person, or you have a lot of friends and a lot of relatives and many people around you, whatever, this is no use as well. So whatever you think about, the only thing that can bring some benefit is the only thing that you can, let's say, carry after you die is the good action you did. Gewe example, the noble deed, let's say. And the noble deed is mainly that, let's say, allow us not to get burned again in lowering. That's the basic thing. So this good deed we did, or good virtue, or that, it's allow us not to take a bad rebirth in the lower realm. So that's really the basic idea of good deed. And what are those good deeds? Very simply, it's the, let's say, ethic, or the maintaining, not engage in the 10 negative actions. So if you not engage in those 10 negative actions and you maintain, let's say, this morality conduct, you don't any action which is involving in this 10, then you create positive, I say, action or good deeds, and then you are kind of free to be reborn in the lower realm or bad rebirth. So basically that's it. That's when we think about death. This is how we should intend to think about death. Last.
现在看碰到民族上我姐姐，那村地几个个等到上单一队的爬道儿，给我道死了，不搞了个村地长大主要的当，给我请我碰见个长大主要就，给我请我碰见是了，就是还想人不人的脏，得长大主要的家些开起我去。村地几个长大主要来，给我请我碰见个长大主要的开起我去通街，等去个等去那把大把去去推，等过不去要来死哇。
Nare, nare, nare. So when we think in this way, when you think of death in this way, about the certainty of death, and especially that the only thing that bring any benefit, what is any useful, is the good deed or the making good action. So no matter how long is your life, you will always think like, okay, during this time, I really need to do something beneficial for the next life. Because actually, I don't know when I'm going to die. And actually, the time I have to create such positive action, I don't know. Could be very long, could be very less, I have no idea. So then, you completely eliminate the interest towards this life. This life become kind of not so important. The most important will be next life, because actually this life is just kind of a situation when you can secure kind of a better situation in the next life, which is going to be longer, because actually there is not just one but many other next life. So this way, this life is seen to be very short, and the other life will be more looking thing like a little bit longer, I mean, even more, much more longer. So this way, you will really start to think toward next life better than this life. And this thought actually is when you start to be a Dharma practitioner. When you start to think more about next life, at this time, then your real Dharma practice begin. Before that, when you're just thinking toward this life and all different positive things about this life, you're not really on the path of Dharma. You're not even a Dharma practitioner. It's just start when you're thinking carefully, oh, I'm going to die. I don't know when. So, the only thing that can bring benefit after I die is a good action and the good merits or good action. Then I'm going to do that in this life. And then I'm going to practice the Dharma in order to secure good next rebirth. Then, now you are really a Dharma practitioner.
아야, 나 일단 뭐 미답에 털 살았을 때 봐이나. 얘네 겨와 치마 다 냅송송도 마케바 탑시 셔투고요. 와? 다 냅송송도 만족을 우리 저거 추주송해야 돼. 오다 추주송해야 되는 냠내지 셔투고랬어.
나래. 텐두 초바신디 데라 니네 고츠고로와. 초바나 초바 인랍다.
최근에서 최근 알레 최 이거 중원데 다최 마르마 마셔들어. 최근 좀 마셔대. 니다바 돌상다는 체래. 하고서
디뇰라 초바 레민도.
대화는 더 텐데 된다지 제대로 봤는데 초바 말해. 텐데라시나
초바 means 나가도와. 나래. Okay. So this is how it starts, when you think in this way, when you think about, okay, I'm going to die, and then thinking about this gross aspect of impermanence. We see the first noble truth. First is impermanence. The gross aspect of impermanence. So you thinking, oh, I'm going to die. What is benefit? What is something that can bring benefit after I die? Actually, it's the positive action. Let's say, all the good deeds. And what is mainly the good deeds? It's very just this, let's say, ethical behavior or non-engaging into, let's say, 10 non-virtuous action. So that's when it starts. And actually this person have the, let's say, the energy, let's say, you can say, yes, the force or the determination not to engage in such a negative action, because he's thinking, oh, if I'm engaged into this stuff, this often negative action, I will be reborn in lower realm, and you don't want that. So he's very clear in his mind to don't engage in such behavior. And you can say that in Tibetan we say chopa, like practitioner or real someone, Dharma practitioner. That's when you start to be a Dharma practitioner. If you don't have this thought, you are not actually, even we say there is, we call the three, let's say, motivation of being. There is the lower, the middle, and the higher. We don't not even talking about the higher. Here, this is the let's say the smaller motivation of being is this thinking, not interesting about this life, but more about the next life. And if you are not in such a motivation and you are interested into this life, then you are not a Dharma practitioner. Because we say clearly, there is this text of Manjushri, we say, Tse dilashena chopa min. If you are clinging to this life, there is no Dharma. So that's very clear. Okay? So that's the least Dharma practitioner is someone that is not clinging to this life, but really thinking about next life. That's the minimum to be a Dharma practitioner.
that's not wish to kind of answer Pumpung about this. Midabarita, Stambudilla.
Okay. Then this some tango.
Midabarita, Tapa engagement to us. Midabararis, Taku, this is what we are. Mikasha, this is on a longer Juchinso. Kasha Mikasha Dujuchin Sasso. And Kasha de Dujuchin Sasso. Me Nundale Lonishun Chin Sasso. Does it do so as a Tata? Does it the Jessica do?
Midapa do get Sigma, can you summon down?
Look at it, so bad. Tiny chihuahua, tiny near Buddha.
Oh, this some don't go on that. Okay, so when you think about this way, this aspect of the first one. So, the Four Noble Truth, first aspect, impermanence. When you say this, impermanence means all five aggregates are impermanent. It means, in Tibetan we say gchigma, they are changing. But even you can think differently. You can think they become closer and closer to death. That's another way to think about it. So basically, whatever aggregate you consider, the form, the sensation, the consciousness, whatever, any of these five aggregates, they become closer and closer and closer to death. And it will eventually reach the situation where they just collapse, where they just die. And some people, it will be after 15 years, some people 20 years, some people like 80 years, some people 8 years. They don't know. We don't know when going to die. But definitely, those aggregates are impermanent. There is no permanence. You cannot think like, okay, I'm going to stay here forever. I'm fine. I don't need to care because I'm going to stay here. I have all the time. I can take my time. I'm very cool. No, there is not such a thing. Because these aggregates are second after second closer to death, and eventually they will be eliminated. They will die. So this is what we need to think when we think about the gross aspect of impermanence.
Midabasa Santa Indri, Sambujine Midabare, Miambajine Midabares, Sange Kandajin by Ineko, you just don't write Midabarares.
Yambo commençons. Samboina mitabares nie god.
Da berachanga za kewala chana kewa sangujine de midabare. Kewa joboji nyambaji yimbaina de midabare. Wa sange karina ti midabarare. Ko yoto denje puju rode genje da matoje ko matoba de denje yomare sta.
Kaina tana chikba chikyanji.
Wa chama yoto yoto ge keji jigdo ge Kambaji Nimba, Kamba Gallagher Nimba Sandoya, Shingoji in a Denimba Sando, the Gallagher Nimba Sando, or different. Dwarfing Gang, Surajina, good jig to the Cheshin Canaresta.
Oh, did I summon Dongoro? Nari. Okay, so when you think about impermanence, actually you can extend our vision not only on the 4 aggregate or 5 aggregate, we can think like whatever you consider is impermanent. Means is going to be to be destroyed, to not be anymore, basically. You can say like that. So whatever good thing, good positive action, whatever, it's also impermanent. Whatever bad thing, bad feeling, bad thing, bad experience, whatever, is also impermanent. Whatever you consider is all in this process of, some can say, exhaustion or elimination. You know, you can think about a house. So you think, oh, it's a new house, great. But at the same time, it's a new house, great. But still, it's going to become more and more old, and become a old house. And after some time, it collapses completely. Whatever you consider, if you consider like fruit, like apple, you see one apple, oh, very tasty, whatever. But if you leave it like that, it will grow more and more, and it will go into rotten fruit, and it will be completely disappear as well. Whatever flower, you can say, oh, that's a beautiful flower, or so beautiful, whatever. But same. So this beautiful flower is going to be old and very ugly. And anything you consider, any phenomena, it's all into this process of being exhaustion. Jik in Tibetan means it's actually eliminate, destroy. There's a word itself. In Tibetan we say jikten. It's like the support of this, let's say, how you call it? Sometimes you can say something like collection of ephemeral, like something that is going to disappear, to be eliminated. Transitory collection, something like that. Something which is transitory toward the state where is no more. Basically, that's it. No, dunyawa.
가르치는 동양어를 했어. 어데? 동양어 이제 교사가 나서 되게나 나마시는 사마 되게나 연구도 없어. 다 풍마들의 연구도 없어. 다시 들으시라 민도스더라.
다시 들으시라 민도스.
그다 마시베 하샤 망고도 상조라. 동네도 누르 동네다 그냥 망고도 따라 지장 감서 깨외 동네도 경과서의 동네도 나의 동네도 근데 소소게 내가 마부지 여봐야 내가도 모두의 동네지도 소소랑 알아 먹었어 마부지 연한테 연구도 먹었을 때 연구도 민두바 그러
네.
민두바도 토도 먹거든 내가도 연구민도 이 다마 쉬웠을 시간 먹거든 다시 잠시인데 하자 망고도 있다 들라
네.
들 저만 근데 동네고
So the next aspect, which is dunyawa, means suffering. You can say suffering, or something which is not even suffering. You can say something like unpleasant, something you don't like. In Tibetan, in Sanskrit, you say dukkha. In Tibetan, we say dunyel. Duk is something like poison, something you don't like, and nyel is something like create suffering, create some trouble. Anyway, so here there is so much that we live on this aspect of dunyalo. So we say there is this three kind of suffering. We say the suffering of suffering, the suffering of change, the suffering which is kind of all-pervading suffering. But even more than that, Krishna was saying, inside of this there is no tashidile. Tashidile is good thing, happiness and pleasant. There is no tashidile. There is so much things we experiment we don't want. So there is many things we don't want, we really don't want. For example, you have the suffering of the birth, to be born. We have suffering of sickness. Who wants sickness? Who wants to be sick? To have all this physical sickness or mental sickness, all these different things. And then after some time you become old. Who wants to be old? Who wants not just to stay young forever and everything? We don't want this. But nevertheless, we grow old. We all these different attribute of your physical, mentally going to degenerate and you become old. And at the end, finally, you die. Who want to die? No one. Who want to live this pleasant situation? No one. And many things we want to encounter. We want many things. We have a lot of desire, something we wish and everything, but we cannot get everything we want. So we have this unsatisfaction, suffering of not getting what we want. And many other, like sometimes we don't want to meet some people we are bad, but nevertheless we meet them. We on the contrary want to meet people we like and we want to meet them, but we don't meet them. So many things. When we think about that, there is so much unsatisfaction, suffering, all these different situations that we don't want. But nevertheless, we have to face it. We have to experiment. So this is why the Buddha here say the second aspect of suffering is actually suffering. Is suffering, unsatisfaction, all these different situations where we're not satisfied, where we're not happy, where there is no tashidele. Nas.
그래서 다 내게 동양화 들으셔야지. 그 가르쳐줬으나 그 레다 뉴문 거 샤마셔래. 레다 뉴문로 때는 연구도 없으라 되가라. 조군중을 때는 연구도 없으라 그야. 군중 세대 레다 뉴문이야. 대왕 연구도 없으라.
Not so. So if you ask where is this coming from? Where all this misery, all this suffering, all this different very unhappy feeling coming from? And the answer is let on nyumu. Means lay the karma, the action you perpetrate before, and nyumu ba, what is agitate and obscure the mind. Nyumu ba. This is where it's coming from. So when you think about this dugwanawa, this aspect of suffering, and you're looking for what's the origin, and this you find the origin of suffering, which is once again the past action, le, and the action you committed, and nyomongpa, we say something afflictive emotion, or what is literally nyonmong. Mongpa. Mongpa means obscuration. You cannot see anything. You're completely in the dark. And mong means, because this is one. And nyun means agitation. So this agitation that creates so much obscurity, you cannot perceive anything anymore. That's the origin. This is why, or from what, or from where, this very, what do you say, unpleasant feeling, suffering coming from.
다들 인도 다들 가서 민두가 동해대다 동해대 주 레다 뉴모데 가서 매서 고야です
나래
다들 지게 동해대 매서 와라 동해지 주 레다 뉴모데 매봐 마서나 동해대 매서 토야고 민도
나래
다들 매서 그 라찬도 가래 대 가래서 다 동하다 담에 시그니즈 쉬고
데라테니 그러고.
데라테는 동화도 담이 그 남샤 쉬고 그랬어.
나서. 데라테니. 라리. So if you understand how much suffering and you really feel that's true actually, and maybe I never thought about that, but there is so much suffering, so much thing we don't want. So we think, okay, so if you understand that the cause of such this unwilling suffering or unwanting suffering is actually the afflictive emotion and the karma. So if you want to get rid of suffering, we absolutely need to get rid of the origin of suffering. That's the only way. Because if you don't eliminate the cause, or the origin, let's say the origin, it will still come up from the origin. So we absolutely need to get rid of the origin of suffering. And this is where the next two is coming into place. What is the mean? What is the way to abandon, to eliminate completely the origin of suffering? Here come empty or emptiness and selflessness. That's the way.
that's it. That is the answer. Check tesam chia tandakabdili karshigurso. Umatawa shirakosu. Umatawa shirakosu karshigurso. So 다음에 maybe donda the sugar, Tomba in the sugar. 하고서 때나 드레셔야 동화들아요 파라시지 유도 아니 이네 자외기 시선 조단을 잡아야나 동화서나 딱시랑 하신 동화 다음에 벌써 랑게트베 제가 다음에 봤어 다디 나가 참에 캐라데 드레
때 용가 서로노 타와니 데 야보 송로노 동보게 동화시엔데
딱시 랑하신 동화
다시 랑와샹기 동화 다시 랑와샹 딱시 랑와샹기 동화 딱스나 딱바와
딱바와다 지부와다 랑와 동화
데니와 딱바와 치부와 아니 랑와 동바치
아야 다 딱바와스는 고 미다베 임발 되지는 딱바 동화레스
나레
지부와스는 고 차시 망고지라 뜨는 주바인데 지부야 동바레스
나레
랑와서 고 교단 찐게 때는 중화래 고 랑 중화 때 말이 규기를 때는 중화래서 랑와 동바레스
뭐래 딜 그래글라기 디 동보게 동화 기게자시리로
동화 기게시다 나가 산잖아
식체 나리 okay so what we study here the Tsawechirap the Tsawechirap is basically exactly teaching that these two aspects of Tongwa, empty and selfless. This is all without self, Dame, and this is very important. So here, what we have to understand when we read in this text, Tongwa, which is based on the Four Noble Truths. So remember, the Four Noble Truths is for the first kind of person, the one we don't really accept, the second and the third wheel of Dharma. It's just very basic. Svatanshika and Sotantrika and Vaibhashika. So how they understand this aspect of Tongwa? So this is very important to remember. So Tongwa, it's empty, and here it's empty of three characteristics. The first one is about empty of being permanent. Okay, because we have seen everything is impermanent. There is not something that stay even for 1 second to be something. It's all in this process of disappearing and eliminate. So it's all not permanent. So that's the first one. So empty of being permanent. That's the first one. The second, it means empty of being independent. Okay, or we say empty of being, let's say, one. First, say this way. Empty of being one. Chikpo means one. So nothing is one, because you see everything is composed, is made of part. So even a part is made of part, and this part is made. So anything you consider is made of parts. So everyone, any school will accept that it's empty of being chikpowa, one, or oneness, something like that. Okay, that's the second. And the third one is empty of being wrong. You can say maybe independent in this time, because nothing is independent. It's all based on cause and condition. We cannot find something that without any condition just arise like that. There's no such a thing. So everything is based on cause and condition. So everyone accept this aspect of empty of being permanent, empty of being oneness or one, and empty of being independent. So this is all accepted, and this is why here in the text it say empty. Last.
Yes. Tamadi dame basla dedla ame basla yende kana denebe rungshingi dame ba. Rangwon zhuge dongba. Oda omatanju de rangwon zhuge dongba sla panda da kasada ngomulu zhuge rang zhuge dongba ra. 하고도 담바 쪽에 랑시 쪽에 통파 나리
This okay. Ina kunso kelen jegi marwa. Na to deba ton sotoma rogyuba deso.
혼자가 가서 란자투베 세게 다음에 봤을라고도.
Rangedze yudame pa.
란자투베 세게 다음에 봤을 군들레.
Rangyat. Oh.
란주바 맨제기 라탄 때래.
Nare.
이내 간수도 자시를 셔인데 그거 다음에 봤을때 다 가르면 다 랑주베 또 다음에 봐.
Don't get one dame pa.
랑주베 다음에 봐.
Nare. Okay. Tindu natsoge telgyupa la sanantangorwa. The rangyupa la sanantangor mare.
편집을 쓴다고도 먼저.
Nasolwa. Nare. So here you have to understand. So when we talk about the Four Noble Truth, even though this Four Noble Truth is addressed to the very, let's say, basic disciple at the beginning, we can understand it even deeper with the aspect of Madhyamika Prasankika. So you can have many different interpretations about the last aspect, which is selflessness. Okay, so if you think about this, what Uma, how you call this one, the Madhyamika Svatantrika will think that there is, it's a very long explanation, but we can say something like it's empty, or it's a non-self in a sense. There is no a self which exists from his own side without depending to be posited with a force to let's say correct awareness, something like that. So basically for them, they think there is such a thing like a self. Okay, so that's for the Madhyamika Svatantrika, but it's empty of being like independent self, something like that. So there is a self, but not which one is not independent, because it's posited to the force of appearing to the non-defective awareness. So that's maybe for the Madhyamika Svatantrika. That's a way to understand. And when you think about the lower than that, they all have understanding about what means to be selfless. Okay, so for example, Vaibhashika and Kosadi and Sotantrika, they have their own way to interpret that, thinking like it's a self, but not something which is completely independent self. So there is a self, but not an independent one. So it's empty of being an independent self, something like that. But for us, as we study Madhyamika Prasangika, Saweshara, for us this means very different things. We say it's empty of being truly established, that the self of phenomena or person, whatever, that exists on his own, or exists in a way that is truly established, So for us, when you hear, when you listen or you hear this notion of selflessness or without self, we're going to think in this way. We're going to interpret the teaching of the Buddha according to the thought of what the Nagarjuna explained in the Saweshara or the Madhyamika Prasangika view.
디 켈란데 켈란데 쪼까바체네 가사 런싱이 뭐줘보다 가사를 신도 가리인 바이가 들은싱 뭐줘봤으잖아요 쪼때는 배야데 들 아와 터도 가사가 담에다 추가 담에 때나 되기 알았어
네. 콘소 근데 봉부 런싱이 요레스 안에 간자기 런싱이 요레스 콘소 상기도
콘소 들라고 런주 보면서 가사들랑 오늘 줘봐래 부모의 랑원에 줘봐랬어. 자시로게 랑원에 줘봤다. 부모의 랑원에 줘봤다. 소도 자시로 되까 이거다.
나리. 이나 우마 랑규바 콘소 양 디 삼로당기 민둘와.
다랑 삼당도 콘소.
콘소 양타가. 우마 텔규바. 우마 텔규바 직보 런싱기 두바 동바리마도 상마 우마 랑규바 요레스. Nare. Okay, so what we have to understand here is when you think about this Drupta, this fourth school, you have the Madhyamika Svatantrika and Sitamatran, Dodepa, we call it Vaibhashika and Sotantrika, all these four schools, they all, let's say, convince that there is something that is truly established. Like the aggregate is truly established, the person is truly established, also the phenomena are truly established. There is no all what we say, not impermanence and one and all these things, but nevertheless, they are truly established. You can find something. If you look for, you will definitely find something towards the phenomena. But the only school, according also with this one, with the text we're going to study, which is Tsavoshrap, which is the Madhyamaka Prasangika, they don't accept that. For them, all whatever phenomena or person is empty. There is not a self of this, which is truly established. This is why we say here, selfless. All the other school, they just accept there is such a self, which is truly established. So what? Argumento yonga solo no. De ranchin de usawachira kapsu.
Zawashiro kapsu da karika giyor. Zawashiro karika kabar chigiyor sna. Asa yangon duba pondal dekti.
De yonga solo no global son. Des quoi? De kansa ge.
Oh, kansa rangon duba.
Kansa ramone chuba.
Oh, pumbu rangon duba. Oh, di rangon duba. 가네 파가네 양원의 주로 똥바래 있어도 자오시르고 쪼디시가 자오시르고 주셔 쪼 가래 쓰러데 가사가 담에다 쳐다 하고
랑문이 주바
랑문의 주로 똥바데 다 자오시르고 주셔 쪼 데레 자오시르고 셰쪼 데레
Nare. So what we have to understand is what is the, we call it Tibetan Gaba, means the object of negation. What is negate? What is, let's say, refuted, you can say, from this Tsavachira or Madhyamaka Prasangika point of view, is like this truly establishing aspect of person or phenomena or aggregate. For them, there is no wrong mene chuba. We say wrong mene chuba. Wrong means self. Mene means really, truly, veritably, something like that. Maybe this is French English. Maybe truly it's okay. Truly, mene in Tibetan means just true. It's true. Mene, when you say it's true, mene, you say that. So wrong mene chuba. Chuba means establishing, creating, like producing. Something like that. Something that is really established by his own. Wrong mene chupa. So this is actually what is negate. Whatever this of self of person, aggregate or phenomena, whatever you consider the object of refutation, of negation of this Madhyamaka Prasanga view, or even you can say Tsavoshrap is this aspect. Wrong mene chuba. I hope it's clear. Wrong mene chuba. Something like that. That's.
Yeah. That does belong to something. That come to the tune. And our shiro the Rabji, you should not do. Tawashiro, Rabji, you should not do.
Rabji, you should do.
Rabji, you should not do. Rabji, Tambutiki Kapsu, so Karkagi or Resna. Karitugu, Karkagi or Reslade. Kaya de.
뽕뽀 영 갈래 간사 그 테스트 뭐 좀 뽕뽀
쓰라 나도 뽕뽕아
근데 뽕뽀나
뽕뽕아 런싱이 여바도 쪼까
런싱이 여바 카
런시 주다 똥와데 때 내가 책에 담았으라 그래
나제 그 똥뽀네 건똥뽀게 뽕뽀 계자시로와
저기 담배 값수 조 가래 서나 책에 담에 조데 저기 담배 값수 책에 담에 조데기도
나제
아고서 다 저기 니바데기 안사게 담에 조데기도
Oh, that's so.
어데 코인 쳐봤죠. 야 쳐봤대 두 사람.
Denanshi nishutsa dunyore. Denanshi nishutsa dunyore.
두 사람 드레스 고쳐져요.
Oh, lashi. Tampo chogi dame. Anijila pungpo kosade. Tampo kanza gidame. Pungpo na wa.
당보 쳐게 다음에 되게.
Chogi dame te.
이게 제소 강사가 다음에 되기도.
Kande. Inaya chogi dame de la tenege pungpo na gidame. Kulagdo.
데 소 풍문하게 다음에 되기도. 대템 받을 리벤만다 다 예배거나 되기도. 리벤 망고 시부 때문에. 와다 풍문하라 시여 바까기도.
Ranching yopa kagidos. Ranching yopa kagidos. Pe tun zamu pe jwa. Ranching yopa kagidos. Moresha. Okay. So when you study, when you're going to study Tsaweshirap, this text of Nagarjuna, there is actually 27, let's say, aspects. So each aspect, or each of these 27 parts, maybe like this, negate one particular aspect. And the first one is actually explaining. It's very strong in Tibetan. Yoba kagidu. So you can say something like that. It's like, so it's talking about the 5 aggregates, and it's demonstrate very precisely with great logical reasoning that actually I cannot say you means there is, you can find, okay? So you can say that it demonstrates that you cannot find aggregate, any of the 5 aggregates that are here, let's say, ranching to be, like by his own, like because Yopa kagidu, in Tibetan is very strong this word. Yopa kagidu. Yo means there is something. You can find, there is something. Because you always say existing, but actually it is much stronger than that. It's like there is, you can find, is there. You can say, it demonstrates, like when you examine, when you investigate the true logical reasoning, the 5 aggregates, you cannot find any 5 aggregates to remain there as truly established, something like that. So that's the first of these tenets, of this point, let's say. And actually this talking about this aspect of the phenomena. So it's thinking about the selflessness, of the emptiness of phenomena. And the next one, the second one, will be the same for the person. So it's explaining through very precise reasoning that when you investigate the person, you cannot find any remaining, something like that, person that is truly established. Yoba kagidu. So it means it's ka means it's like negate or block, something like negate the person to truly establish, to be here, to be there, that you can see, you can find, you can grasp. It is like that. Yoba kagidu.
다도서 다 한테 드나마 셰나 다도 나고시 가레스라데 동화다 담이시 담이시 봐이나 동화다 담이시 봐이나 가인스는 다 가르쳐 그랬으나 대 공발라 때네 군중 바투야 다 군중 바에 드네 바투야
디케 샴부 페르다.
다 동화 담이 공발라 때네 군중 바투고 군중 리바랑 같이 바투다 가레스라데 페라차선 당보 람 초람토 조람토 드네 토람토 루디 다 파베 견주인 샤워래 데 토람 계진이 발레데 데네 고테 타래 하고서 다 나라도 최고조서데 어디라고 다 최고조서 토람 당골레데 최고조 타버래 람게 데 바스 샤래 데네 데 김바 네 야리 버티게 인도잖아 와텐스타 와다 델라 데네 최고조스라고 그래
lam gi ton lam gi ton kan so ka sang la song ka sa de kala gore mi jo lam ton yo lam chi ni do ka de
cholam da cholam
mari de nan tong lam non la de ni do tong bo
parse mela da nam jo lam
parse mela ton nam jo lam de ke se de bas lam da de la ane tong lam tong bo de kapsu ane gi de lam gonden de ki se
lam dance
lam gi dem
di je song gobe de ba
you know gomden la lemma son la gomlam lamma son la gomdam lamma son ton mason lemma son ton la psycho que c'est
ya gomlan ya le gomlan de ba kut ba ye
nari
those kan roin de ne ke che gunjo de dang bo washi che gunjo su su ki la ke de su su na lam den ta go den ta de yang yang gom ba la de ne de bu sang ge yo go ma sa da ju sa ya zhuai 상계 고마서 타야지 최군조로 때냐 타고 요바시
나로 okay so what we really have to understand, what is the main thing to understand here, is how you eliminate the origin of suffering is by meditating and realizing more and more this. Daniel, can you do something? Oh, okay, thank you so much. All right, Daniel is always here like garden protector. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Daniel. Okay, so here, what is very important and crucial to understand is how you eliminate the origin of suffering. You know, because that's basically what we want to know. Okay, we understand we have suffering, we understand where is this from suffering and everything, but how to eliminate such origin of suffering? It's by these two aspects, this emptiness and selflessness. Is that meditating and realizing more and more this aspect of emptiness and selflessness, you get rid of the origin of suffering. And this is the path, this is the way. So basically, you say it's starting with the first path, which is the path of accumulation. So during the path of accumulation, you're starting to eliminate this origin. And then you go from the path of accumulation to the path of preparation, or union, you can say it both ways, union or preparation. And then after that come the path of sin. Okay, the path of sin. When you reach the path of sin, you know, you actually have two aspects of the path of sin. The first instant of path of sin. So when you see emptiness directly, okay, this become what we say lamden. So that's actually the noble truth of the path. You know, this is the path of sin, the first aspect of the path of sin. You know, it's when you actually find what we call lamden, the true path, you know, in this Four Noble Truth, the last one, true path. And then in this path of sin, there are actually two let's say, two steps or two phases, maybe like this. So we say a Bachelam or Midulam, but anyway, whatever. Here, the next step, it's actually when you reach the next step of the path of sin, it's actually Gomden. That's the true cessation. You see? So the true cessation is here, you know, in this aspect of the path of sin. And then from that you will improve and improve more and more. And then at the end you go to after the path of sin, you reach gradually what we say the Gomlam, means path of meditation. There is 9 steps of 9, maybe 9 steps on this path of meditation. And then after that you reach the path of normal learning, where you actually become a Buddha. So all different aspects, even when we talk about Sangha, you know, we talked before Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So basically when you become Haya Sangha, means like the we say Arya Sangha, or you say noble Sangha. It's actually when you reach the first aspect of the path of sin. At this time, you are actually Arya Sangha. And this is really actually the real understanding about the path. It's to understand that how to eliminate, to eradicate the origin of suffering is through familiarization. Meditation, we say familiarization with Tongwa Tang Dame, the emptiness and selflessness. This is crucial to understand. 나쪽에 Tongwa Tang Dame la tene 아니 kunju denpagi pongoremato tabshisenda yomarwa.
다 tabshisenda yama. mellam jane pongtogo mare ngasa dene pongtogo mare kena thadune pongtogo mare kayen chitu mare. wada kayen isna. 다음에 되지. 또 다음에 그 남샤데 시바 코나라 때네. 내가 가이스나 다 들아 얘기하러 치기나. 뭐라 시주도 똥바. 주런 시주도 똥바. 되네 지부런 시주도 똥바서도 샤야. 남다르 고숨세드네. 남바르 탑에 고숨세 샤야 되네 요래. 하고서
Nyaka soro no, de peke shambu pereda.
만화도 풍부들 사셔나 풍부들이 뭐 풍부 고난 게 뭐란 식으로 똥바. 풍부들 갈라 때는 저 그런 식으로 똥바.
어디.
풍부들의 중은 지부런 식으로 똥바.
노워 넘바 지부.
어제
유 노워 규 넘바. 저는 제부 노워 규 제부.
어디서 다들 그런 식으로 똥바 숨보들라 민가르다가서 넘버 탑에 고숨스라고.
넘버 탑에 고숨.
다 고숨부터 마셔봐 얘는 가르쳐 그랬으나 걔는 군주봉 토해라 하고 연말이다. 나도 네팔도 군주봉 거래. 군주봉 봐나 최군주 권한 것인 말이에요. 제가 나는 처음에 무슨 사람 가르치고 그랑 남다르 고숨부터 또 살다 모두 봐. 동바징도 동아 담에 또 살다 모두 봐 얘는 최군주 먹을 수 있는 말다 저랑 하고 말다.
최군주 센디게 카라그리 동람라네 고츠구도와 최군주.
다 남다르 고숨부터 곰되는 남다르 고숨데 다 빠세면은 뭔데. 빠세면은 람덴 샤라다.
빠세면은 람덴레. 빠세면 람덴레.
애들은 남다르 고숨데 남들람 샤르.
남들람 참도 들어.
되는 고대 탑는 거다.
고대. 너 고대기.
나타고 고숨부터 곰바 치고라 때는데 안저 이거래 방도야래 마도제 최군주 창도야래 마도 신랑가야 말이다.
Narwa. So it's very important to understand this because maybe we think, I don't know, as Buddhist practitioner, we need to do a lot of things. Like we think that maybe if we do prayer or we accumulate mantra or we do some, I don't know, we practice some deity, whatever. So all this will be able to eliminate the origin of suffering. It's absolutely not. That's not the way. That's not how we can eliminate the origin of suffering. That may be help or whatever, but in any case, that's not the way we can eliminate the origin of suffering. The only way, the only path toward that, it's not anyone sees, but the Buddha is saying that, it's not like something like, who is saying that? I never heard that before. No, it's Buddha actually saying that in the Four Noble Truths. It's to understand these two aspects of empty and selfless. If you understand this aspect of empty and selfless, then slowly you start to go into the Buddhist path, which is not just doing blah blah blah, but to actually be in the path of accumulation, in the path of preparation, and reach the path of sin. And this path of sin, this is where we can find Dharma. Dharma is in path of sin. Is nowhere else. Is no book or anything. We say the 최군조 sendi ye cosa de 동람 그것을 고추고도와 최군조 sen.
어디 고추가 다 오늘 레발라 주말라 남달 고선데 셰고라네 담바시
어,
동네
어,
담바시 동네 담바 캐주니 캐주가 나나 동아 담에 셰 동아
음,
담에 셰 스는데 동아 담에 곰발라 되는 람 초람래 된 통람 야래 인데
음,
셰네 다시
음,
군저 타이 내가 프랑스
음,
군저를 계속 치우세 군저데 가지를 타고 있으면 통람 내고 스토인 거래
nero. Te bachelam de deux capsules, wa. Bachelam de deux
어
capsules. Nare, nare. So, what we need to think, the way to eliminate the origin of suffering. It's very clear. In Tibetan we say, nambar gosum. Dwa, nambar gosum. Nambar gosum means
남탈고서
namtar. Namtar, tarpa ki jasir, wa. Namtar gosum.
탐내람
Namtar.
좋아해 고통
Nare. Namtar gosum. Namtar. So namtar, nam it means aspect. Tar it's tarpa means liberation. And gosum means the tree door. The tree door you can say the tree door of the liberation. I mean if you don't know the door, how can you go through the door and to be liberated? So what is this namtar gosum? This tree door of liberation is about understanding, that you can say pungbo nagi nowo. So nowo it's always translated by essence, but I'm not agree with this translation. Nowo is something like you can think about something and you touch it, you find something, you can really like could be like the surface of the face of something, so you can meet something. So if you look about this or you try to find something you can encounter, not the essence because it makes no sense, you encounter when you think about the five aggregate, what you encounter, what you can touch somehow is something which is empty and selfless. Okay, that's the first thing. So when you think about the aggregate and you come to find the aggregates themselves, what they are basically, what you encounter when you look for them, what you encounter the face of them or the aspect, whatever you call it, it will be something which is empty and selfless of being truly established. You can't find anything. So that's the first door. The second door, it's about, okay, so the aggregates, if I try to touch them, if I try to find them, what I encounter is this emptiness and this selflessness. Okay. And next door is, if you think about what is the cause that creates such aggregate, the cause itself, the nowo means, let's say, what you encounter, what you touch, what you encounter when you're looking for the cause of what create aggregate, it's also empty and selfless. That's the second one. That's the second door. And the third door will be the result. What is bring as a result of this aggregate, if you think of the result of nowo, the same thing. The thing you encounter, the thing you can touch or discover or touch, whatever, in this result is also empty and selfless. So that's the tree door of liberation. And that's through this tree door you start to be in the path. Okay? And slowly you go from the path of accumulation. So there is different division. We say middle, small, middle, great, whatever. There's all these different aspects of the path of accumulation. Then after much accumulation of this meditation, of this familiarization with yourself, with this tree door of liberation, you reach the path of preparation. We say there is four, but we don't need to. Maybe we talk maybe another time about these four aspects. Anyway, so these four aspects of the path of preparation. And then finally, you can reach the state when you perceive directly emptiness. And this is when you reach the path of sin. And this path of sin has two aspects. We say Bachelam and Midrolam. So when the Bachelam at this time start the Dharma. So this is where the Dharma resides. Is when someone in his own experience and mind reach the first step of the path of sin. This is where is the jewel of Dharma. So when you say, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, This is why we talk about here. This is where the Dharma actually is during this aspect. And this is actually, why is the Dharma? Because it's actually Lam. We say Lam Gitemba. This is the path, the noble truth of the path during this first aspect. You see? And the next step, so we say Bachelam and Midolam, so next step after that is actually the true origin of cessation. So you see how much is important this aspect, because through this you really encounter the real jewels of Dharma. Through this you really understand what is actually the thing that lead to the cessation of suffering. You don't only understand, but you can really feel how much is important if you want to go through this path. Otherwise, there is just no way. And then after that, when you finish, to this path of sin, you will go further and further into this familiarization with this three door of liberation, and you will go through the path of meditation, and finally to the path of no more learning, where no need to be no more to be learned anymore, and is actually Buddhahood. So you go from an ordinary being to the Buddhahood through this three door of liberation. So that's very, very important to know. And there is, once again, no other way. No other way. Last.
The next page to ask.
Let it. 17 la libgiribe. Let Daniel, please, can you put the page 17 on the screen? Thank you so much.
대낮감들이 중세시나서다 가르쳐놓은 과된지 시험이 났어요다.
나리.
과된지 중세시험이 났어. 과된세데 계속해서 다 추군적으로는 좀 과된을 봐.
추군적 과된지.
과람니다 추군적서 먼저 추를 겹서 추세가 최대 과된을 남대니 열었어. 대낮 좋은 과된들이었어. 남대 주제는 과된지 타고요. 저당 좋은 과된들이었어.
Okay. So when we talk about Dharma, when you talk about Dharma, let's say jewel Dharma or the jewels of the Dharma, so you have to understand is actually two aspects. This is two aspects of the Dharma is Lamden Tongoden, means the true path, or the verity of the path, the true path, and the true cessation. That's the Dharma. That's what we talk about. Dharma is these two aspects of the true noble truth. Daniel, il est parti. Okay, c'est pas grave. Daniel, if you're here, I don't know, maybe you... cool, great. Can you put the page 17?
You can't see it anymore?
No, I didn't see anything. It's always the same.
Okay, sorry. I put it again.
Thank you.
Put it again. Just 1 second.
No problem. Take your time.
Must be that one. That good?
Maybe attends un peu. Oh yes, good. Okay. Not so tena capture 충전 돼 봐이나.
땡고에 템바스 데 테웨 연된지레스 테웨리. 다서데 강기덕이 테웨 연데 강기덕이 태고래서는 다 셈게텐도 스탕어도 셈게텐도 가인스나 셈게 연den냐고 깨고야. 동리도 싫어 깨고야. 했어.
생기 녀보 개거레스.
말 셈기 연대.
셈기 연대.
셈기 연대 가인스나 단다 들어서 남들 고숨 또be 싫어 깨고야. 했어.
남들 고숨 게 싫어 개거레스.
남들 고숨 또be 싫어.
남들 고숨 또be 싫어.
깨고레스. 근데 제가 님부지를 딱 님부 가지고 동리도 싫어 깨고라.
nare.
동네 도베 싫어 제베 딱지 드네 군중 치마 군중 되게 됐다 와 녀마 들어와 레기 들어와 와 됐다 대화 친구 제 대화 좀 와딘스라 그래스
Nare.
와딘스데 셈게 땡게 셈 나라서 셈라 동네 도베 싫어 지게 동네 도베 싫어 돼 나라서 셈게 되네 딱 알수라 군중대 마 매버스고요.
Chalgores like do. Chalgora.
개고스 빵고스. 개고스 빵고스.
Tiende de dunya konjon de naso sem non la yori lamna digirwa.
오, 그래. 나라서 둘로게 작파지 둘로려 와.
Naro.
둘로 작파지 둘로려. 하고서 가서 빼서 둘로.
Dre dulogi tabandi.
둘로 작파지 둘로려 와. 근데 워싱머신을 이제 룩자드니까 마고도 스타뉴데 가라데네 까마 조정아 뉴스 손지스나 초즈치다 체가다 초즈니들 따뉴데 또 따마시를 봐도
Dre.
어때 되는지 대별라 자자 되네 때 되는지 자자 안저 동네도be 실업돼서 셈로 동네도be 실업돼 줄었게 그 동네도be 실업돼 안 줄어요 대 공연도 딱 와지면 신세다. 다 뒤에 가족을 셈기께 뒤에 가라가라서 셈을 예배되네 군중을 줘야 되게 마트해두고요. 와시미시디나 로저 들어 뚫린다 가라데 들어 타고도 뚫고요. 봐.
Re.
되는 시절에 안아서 셈기께 되게 가르다는 실업들 뚫고 다 실업들 실업들 년보스라 년보 따게 팀한테 자와시라 셰진스라고 나들라
Re. Nyempotinga tabgi chima tangchewe tela sheshing. Olas.
Okay.
Nare. So what explained here is the next Dalai Lama explaining that first we have to understand when we look for this origination of suffering, of the origin of suffering, we don't need to go very far. This is actually in your mind. In our mind is this origin of suffering. Not anywhere else, not outside, just in your mind. And what we need to do to understand, so this origin we say it's afflictive emotion and past negative action. It's karma or past negative action. So we need to separate our mind from this origin of suffering. That's the way. So, and what is the way? What is the method we need to do when we need, in order to separate this origin, in order to get rid of, or literally separate our mind from this origin of suffering, is actually shirap. You can say some people like wisdom or whatever. So shirap literally means shades consciousness or awareness, and rab it's like great or high awareness, something like that. But anyway, so let's say great awareness that actually realize and actualize, you can even say, this three door of liberation. And the very simple example Geshe-la was taking is like if you have a dirty clothes, a clothes which is very dirty, okay? So thinking this way, our clothes in our mind, something like this, and all this origin of suffering, this afflictive emotion, this karma, is actually something like stain in our mind, because we are stained, we are polluted somehow by this afflictive emotion and the karma. So we need to put these clothes into a washing machine, and more you stay in a washing machine, more and more you can clean up this clothes. So if you stay 1 minute, it becomes cleaner, and then 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. After such a long time, it will be perfectly clean. So in the same way, we need to use the method here. We say Nyepo means like the antidote, which is, you can say Tonito Pesherap, that's the highest awareness that realizes emptiness, or you can say the higher awareness has realized the four aspects we talk about, this three door of liberation. more and more, apply more and more to be able to completely separate our mind from the origin of suffering. That's what is explaining here. And it's very important to understand this aspect, so that how to get rid of this origin of sensation and to where it resides. Because if you don't know, if you look for outside, and there's no way, it's in our mind. And so we need to generate, to create, or to get rise, or to get born, or whatever, to get birth to this higher awareness, and use it in order to eradicate completely by apply it to our in your life, in order to completely eliminate or separate this origin of cessation, or this origin of suffering, and get at the end the real cessation. Yep, that's all. 여기서 저는 여보 강왕랑 랍선다. 샘다.
나라도 쌤다 카가서 요래요 말이야.
알레 강가서 요르베. 되지.
제가 나라도 단도 쌤라. 레바 뉴모도 레바 뉴모데 강서 나라도 쌤 거라 레바 뉴모도 쌤.
직관 말어.
그러면 나라도 쌤 제가 간 레바 뉴모 때 가인스라 돌로 잡아놔서 돌로 쏙 맞춰봐나 시도.
네.
돌로데 짜고 쪼버도 줘요. 그때 되는 시간에 나라도 쌤을 예배게 레바 뉴모 되게 돼. 동리도 싫어 그다게 쌍마 소투 그랬어. 내가 그거래. 그거래. 아 들으면라고도 대라 쌤게 땡게 차소게 드맛대다 슬로다.
네.
차속스는 되자 시당 아게라 소버드는 뉴모드다 쓰고.
네.
드맛대다 제로 이 미당. 제로 내가 그거 해도 말했을 때 미당. 아 차속게 드맛대다라 이년보 담에도 싫어게 간대시요래. 동리도 싫어서 간대시용거지. 아드자. 안에도 싫어도 뉴문고 이년보 지들도 되게 어떻게 당가서 하고. 당가서 쉬고야 되나?
Okay, so what we need to understand, that's very, very important. I mean, that's a very, very essential aspect to understand, is first thinking whatever is the origin of suffering, this we say afflictive emotion or nyamungba and karma, is it one with our mind? Is it something like one with our mind, something like indifferentiate for our mind, or something that can be separate? That's the first thing we need to understand. That if it's one with our mind, then you have no way. I mean, it's just one thing, and you cannot get rid of it because it's the same thing. But if, as Geshe-la takes the example, it's like a stain on a clothes. You know, it's like there is a clothes and there is a stain on clothes. Stain and clothes are very different things. You can get rid of the stain of the whatever, make a dirty clothes, and the clothes, it will become a very clean clothes. So that's the first thing we need to think. The Lama say, is there is a possibility to separate wrong. In Tibetan say, because he say here chak. So chak means attachment. But when you say chak sok means everything else. So you say you say desire, attachment, hatred, hunger, proud, jealousy, whatever, all these different things, and the imprint of this and the karma of this action motivated by this, all these different things. Is it possible to separate these from our mind? That's the first question we need to think. And if the answer is yes, okay, how can we separate this? And the answer is the only antidote to be able to do that, to separate this origin of suffering for our mind, is Tonito Beshara. It's this higher awareness that realizes emptiness. That's the only antidote, the only washing machine, you can say, to really separate all these different stains from our mind. So this is what we need to know. This is what we need to understand. That's a crucial aspect. If we don't understand that, it means you don't understand the teaching of the Buddha. You don't understand the way the Buddha wants people to get rid of suffering. Because it's not by praying or sacrifice or whatever thing. This is the way. This is how the Buddha explained. If you want to be rid of suffering, you need to eliminate the origin of suffering, which is in the mind. And in the mind, but it's not one with the mind. It's something that could be separate. And how you're going to separate it is through familiarizing yourself with this aspect of, we say, the three door of liberation, or you can say the developing, get rise or generate this higher wisdom awareness that realize emptiness. So if you understand that, it's very, very important. Voilà. Donc, on a des tables de là, déjà, on a so tabinao lepso siente qui toni to peshelab la tene, ani kunjung de ba qui pongya rimato. Senda kisha yo marwa ari. So this is what so this is what the Buddha teach during the Prajnaparamita Sutra. You know, it is very huge text. There is so many things, verses, but in a nutshell, this is what is teaching by the Buddha in this Prajnaparamita text. Nas.
Rabji tambe kasu, choke tame di zo dengi dus. Rabji niva de kasu, kasa tame di zo dengi dus. Pera shashana. Tadina wada mata, gebu shayung
Nare. So in this text, Chawashirab, Gombududup, the protector of Nagarjuna, actually this is what his text is teaching. He teach the selflessness or the emptiness. We say these two first aspects. The first aspect, he teach the emptiness of the selflessness of, you can say, Bongbo, the aggregate of the phenomena. You can say the aggregate or the selflessness and emptiness of the phenomena. That's the same thing. And then in the second point, we see there is 27 of them. So in the second point, he explained the selflessness of the emptiness of the person. And then after that, he go in great detail, very wide, very extending reasoning about that. But this is really the main thing here. And this is why he wrote this text, to expose these two, emptiness and selflessness.
Temba shi, tumda shige ke lengi wares. Ile yang tu lengi lena gobe temba de chir shisha la yeba da. Goden sede da mui ne ji yeba da. Idene yangu ge sosu kyula jungye ji yeba. Ana zu nyame jaba yana goden sa ngzo tabe ji yeba. Adile nyeba mune de dele ke worsta nyeshe de ting chuba. 양다바지 수송으로 껴켜나면 과den지 수술을 용하라 오메 중단으로 오메 쉬는 몇 동네 따와들라 니바도 과차고르스
고덴나 니치 고덴 요리 삼나 이나 뱅기 말이 데우마 송마 정바이나
오메 쇼마저는 고덴 요리에서 민간지를 마도 된다로 세금 말스키나
들어와.
제가 오메 슝나라는 데로 저는 정신게 뭐주바 인양 장게 뭐 정신게 주번 짐바데 마리바스라고요. 내가 차당게 자와 임바 쏘아서 머리바데게 도샤 시단도 저게 자와체. 대주서 또 맞잖아. 너무 되게 또 도저히 상무 시도 땅 걸, 대도 내내지는 상무 땅 거랬어.
나래.
해야 소소 쌤기 초아 용당다. 강조 쌤 난거 뭐네게 초아 여버지네. 상땅 걸. 다 그래 가서라진 뮤지엄 다가도 나시 멤버십.
아, 네 연구 말어. 나래.
이래저래 용만을 쏘다.
나래. Okay, this is Lavgin. Okay, Daniel, can you rise the text because you're a little bit higher now? Okay, so here's the next dilemma we're explaining. So when you think about this aspect of Goden, like literally go, it's let's say cessation, and Goden is a true cessation. So this noble truth of the cessation. So every Drupta, that every philosophical tenets or school accepts that, okay, but it's not enough. It's not enough to understand. Oh, I get it. There is a cessation of suffering. So what? One thing. Okay, you get that. So you understand. You can tell the name cessation of suffering. But if you don't study in great depth with a lot of energy and time and I don't know, how can I say more and more? So all this very in great detail and precisely, this lead nowhere. That's not just knowing that, oh, there is a cessation of suffering and then I know the name cessation of suffering. It's not enough. You really need to understand very, very, very precisely, in a very great detail, actually, this aspect of emptiness. And the only way to be able to do that is by studying, the Madhyamaka Prasangika text. There is no other way. So this is why we really need to have some, Geshe-la was saying, some kind of sensation. The tsowa kiegoris, sewa kondes kogoris, the kondes kogodwadi.
ko saltan tamune je sosola yoya yobachi. 냠뇽게 그랬었다.
Nyamyon kiegoris loa. So we need real experience, maybe not sensation, maybe experience, not just thinking. I was saying, like when you go into a museum, you go in museum and you go and you see the painting and nice, so cool, nice painting, blah blah, and then you go outside the museum. So you didn't do anything, you didn't paint anything, you didn't have any experience of the painting, or you didn't be an artist yourself. You just see some nice painting. That's it. Okay. So not this way. You really have to create some real experience, really deep and understanding and profound meaning. And that's the only way to get rid of all these different things that we say here, the dukkha, like attachment, hatred, anger, all this imprint of that, and all the action created by all this. So this remaining action that creates suffering as well. So this is why we have no other choice than to really study very hard, very profound, not just like someone visiting a museum, but really get a real experience. Nyam means Tibetan. Nyam is experience, and nyong you really test, you experience it. So these two words, you not have only experience, but you really experience the experience, kind of thing.
어디 뒷마 어디 뒀어요. 녀와 길로디 소소라 냠냠게. 대제 뭐 티아바 대다당. 고물로도 숨바다시 숨바 대다당. 소스템이도 둘째 냠도 줬어. 하고서 소스템 고물로도 숨바 대나시 소스템로 영야 두면도 다 탑시 쳤어.
Gomboludru gitawa nasul sem gitawa na chigurdo de disugoro.
Gomboludru ge toni gitawa sa sunya na.
Darwa.
Toni gitawa na. Dira toni gitawa de yungdo mendu taja chigi jaje.
Ah.
So sem lo toni gitawa de le tabshi jaje.
Reda, Korangi Somba Nashina Soke, Samuton, Diri Marie, Rebe, Dinde, Dandela Tene. No,
Who's got a sound that Shidur Cheja? The nature sound of you know, Harba, and then you do so much younger stuff.
Nare. So, what we need to do here, is like, so this emptiness is exposed by Nagarjuna, for example, in text. So, what we need to do is not just listening and accept, okay, he explains that, but we need actually to put in our mind and try to see if it kind of fits in our mind. Is it the conclusion, what he explained, and the conclusion, is it something that we accept logically, thinking about all these different steps of reasoning to have the same kind of, is it true, and put it into our mind and try to go to the same process of reasoning, not just, let's say, just by listening, but really put it in our mind to really try to develop the same kind of reasoning. So if you do that, you will reach some experience, and then you can think that liberation is something we can reach. If you do that.
Yes, one. Others. Then a concession yan did soon do. And the Chozo Mika Shake, they got Chavans, the Sumsa, the Chilo, nearby touches, Chozo Mika Shake, didn't it? And Gaurum Jatuga Pes, lessons. You want to take theoretic do's. Then Dabe, Ninja Chukunya, which are not digging vessel that the theoretic Johnsons.
Nare.
Ah, the Ninja Chuku Yamleja, the Ninja Curatic Maris, Shivanis, Daurum.
Nero.
I is the Ninja Jawala, Shiro got a Shiro draw Majana. Shiro draw Majana, to me on washing Mari. To me, a transfer. To me, the Yamaha. To me, the Jokunju became in Tonda. To me, Kuda Jabala Trender, Ninjas, to me, Kuda Jabala Trender, same Jere. To me, Kuda Jabala Trender, some Jalo, Tunga was said it. They Jukunjung, let the Kunjung, Nemo, get a show. What? Teta Trender Square, Ninja, Kaisan Ninja Kiwala, Ninja Yamli Chavala, Shiramana, Yung Maris, and the da, God
Nare. So here there is someone, maybe from a center or someone, maybe an Occidental person anyway. So someone asking, is it necessary? Because the Nije Chibola Tene and the Kari Yongdo, Sange.
So. Now, Michigan Totiga, Michigan, Naniki Chunian, Michigan Tigibes. On Dichibudwa. Okay, so the question is for this person, is it not okay just to meditate on compassion? Nije Chikpo, so the only compassion, it is not enough to meditate on only compassion. And Ines' answer was even very unexpected. He said, actually, without wisdom, you cannot even, generate compassion. Because without this understanding of wisdom, there is no way to generate compassion. So if you say, I am meditating on compassion, you can't actually, without wisdom. Because if you don't understand these four aspects of the first suffering. So you say suffering, the compassion is the wish to free people from suffering. But if you don't understand suffering in all this great detail, like we say suffering, there is these three aspects. We say first one is impermanent, and then is suffering, and then we understand it's what we call empty, and then selfless. So that's suffering. So if you don't understand this aspect of suffering, you have no way to understand the origin of suffering, as we have seen today. So if you don't understand the origin of suffering, how can you develop compassion to free people from the origin of suffering if you don't know yourself where suffering is coming from?
what you're wishing to someone to be liberated is a very reductive view, actually, of just maybe one very narrowed aspect of suffering. But you don't see in great detail what is the origin of suffering, how to get rid of the origin of suffering, what is the path that lead to the origin of suffering. And if you don't have this kind of view, how can you generate the wish to liberate people from suffering? So this is all different aspects. So as Honest Dharma was saying, without understanding wisdom, you have no way, not even to meditate on compassion, but to just understand compassion. Because that's all. So this is why it's so important. You cannot even understand compassion without wisdom. Yes. Okay, so we reached the time of today. Oh, lasso. Chopge.
치즈 좀 갈리치도 되네 가인스나 크리스마스도 되네 뉴이어치도 되네 가서 때 매버서나 다다래 라니
라타타리와 가서나 콘소 크리스마스 and New Year tata yeri denju also chopge ane tseba gela na gotsuna yon degrewa
와 되게
on degre tatari talab goro andi keshan budu so next we have on 18 January, 18 December. Yeah, 18 December. And after that, actually Thursday, it's 25 and 1. So it will be Christmas and New Year. So I think we all agree to have a rest during these 2 days. So won't have any teaching on these two days, which is Christmas and New Year, obviously. And then we will start again our teaching on January 8th. Okay, so remember that. Okay, so next session 18 will be there, and then after 2 sessions will be not, because it's Christmas and New Year, and then on the January 8th we start again. Lasso di abudurwa. Mi somma la consogi ta kala sa ne mi somma tutinde ya budwa.
야 다녀면
That's so Geshe-la will do some prayer.
Thank you very much.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Gisela, thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Merci Sylvain, merci Geshe-la. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Genla. Good to see you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye.
Merci.
Merci Geshe-la, merci Sylvain.
Merci à tous. À bientôt. À bientôt.
A bientôt.